Why the IRS Can't Touch Certain Billionaires complete. YouTube script. While you're worrying about a few $100s on your tax return, there exists a parallel financial universe where the ultra-wealthy operate beyond the reach of any government agency, including the seemingly omnipotent Internal Revenue Service. Tonight, I'm going to reveal to you the invisible architecture that makes certain billionaires untouchable, the ancient bloodlines that perfected this system centuries ago, and why your government pretends this shadow economy doesn't exist. What I'm about to tell you will fundamentally change how you view money, power, and the illusion of equality that governs our modern world. Because while the IRS can seize your home for unpaid taxes, there are individuals worth hundreds of billions who haven't paid meaningful income tax in decades, and they're doing it completely legally. The story begins not in Silicon Valley or Wall Street, but in the cobblestone streets of medieval Europe, where the House of Rothschild discovered that money has no nationality, no loyalty, and no moral compass. Nathan Rothschild once declared that he cared not which puppet sits upon the throne of England, for the man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and he controls the British money supply. This wasn't arrogant speaking, it was mathematical certainty. The Rothschild formula was elegantly simple. Establish banks in multiple countries, move money between jurisdictions faster than governments could track it, and ensure that no single nation could claim complete authority over their wealth. What began as a necessity for Jewish merchants, forbidden from owning land, evolved into the blueprint for modern financial invisibility. Today, their descendants and protégés have refined this system into an art form that makes tax avoidance look like child's play. Consider the modern reality. While Amazon generated over $400 billion in revenue, and Jeff Bezos became the world's richest man, Amazon paid zero federal income tax in multiple years. But Bezos himself, his personal tax situation operates on an entirely different level of sophistication. Through a labyrinthine structure of family trusts, charitable foundations, and offshore entities, his true wealth exists in a quantum state, simultaneously, everywhere and nowhere, owned by everyone and no one. The mechanism is breathtakingly elegant. Bezos doesn't own Amazon stock. A series of irrevocable trusts own Amazon stock. These trusts are domiciled in jurisdictions where privacy laws make Swiss banking secrecy look transparent. The beneficiaries of these trusts are not Bezos himself, but rather a network of charitable foundations and family entities spread across multiple countries. When Bezos needs money, he doesn't sell stock and trigger taxable events. He borrows against the trust assets at near zero interest rates, deducting the interest payments while the underlying assets appreciate tax-free. This is not tax evasion, this is tax architecture, and it's been perfected over centuries by families whose names you've never heard, but whose influence shaped the economic reality of nations. The Rockefeller family pioneered many of these techniques during America's Gilded Age. John D. Rockefeller Sr. didn't just build Standard Oil, he built the first modern family office, a private wealth management firm dedicated exclusively to preserving and growing dynastic wealth across generations. The Rockefeller formula involved creating a web of interlocking trusts and foundations that served multiple purposes, minimizing taxes, maintaining family control over assets, and funding activities that furthered their long-term interests. But the Rockefellers understood something that most people miss. True wealth isn't about accumulating money. It's about controlling the systems that create and distribute money. Through their foundations, they influenced education, medicine, and government policy. Through their trusts, they maintained ownership of critical industries across multiple generations. And through their family offices, they pioneered investment strategies that remain secret to this day. Today's billionaires have taken these concepts and supercharged them with modern technology and global interconnectedness. Elon Musk's wealth isn't held by Elon Musk. It's held by a constellation of entities that exist in legal gray areas between countries. When Musk famously tweeted about selling Tesla stock to solve world hunger, he was performing theater. The mechanisms that control his actual wealth operate far below the surface of public discourse. The Delaware Advantage represents one pillar of this system. Delaware has crafted its corporate laws to be maximally friendly to complex ownership structures, while maintaining complete opacity about beneficial ownership. More than half of all publicly traded companies are incorporated in Delaware, not because they operate there, but because Delaware's courts have consistently ruled in favor of management and complex financial structures over simplicity and transparency. But Delaware is just the training ground. The real sophistication happens offshore, in jurisdictions that have built their entire economies around financial secrecy. The Cayman Islands, with a population smaller than a mid-sized American city, is home to more registered businesses than California, Texas, and New York combined. These aren't operational businesses, they're legal fictions, designed to obscure ownership and create maze-like structures that confound tax authorities. Here's where it gets interesting, and if you're starting to understand the implications of what I'm revealing, do me a favor. Hit that like button and share this with someone who still believes the tax system applies equally to everyone, because what I'm about to explain will show you exactly how deep this rabbit hole goes. The offshore system isn't random. It's a carefully designed network of interconnected jurisdictions, each specializing in different aspects of financial opacity. The British Virgin Islands excels at creating shell companies with bearer shares, meaning ownership can be transferred by simply handing over a physical certificate, with no public record of the transaction. The Cook Islands has asset protection laws so strong that even if a U.S. court orders asset disclosure, Cook Islands law prohibits compliance with foreign court orders. Switzerland remains the gold standard for private banking, but not for the reasons most people think. Swiss banking secrecy isn't just about numbered accounts. It's about a fundamental philosophical difference in how privacy and government authority are balanced. Under Swiss law, financial privacy is considered a fundamental human right, and violating banking secrecy is a criminal offense for bank employees. This creates a legal fortress around wealth that governments find nearly impossible to penetrate. The numbered account itself is a work of art. Account holders don't interact with the bank using their names. They use numbers and codes known only to a select few bank employees. Transactions are conducted through intermediaries who themselves don't know the ultimate beneficial owner. The paper trail doesn't just go cold. It was designed never to exist in the first place. But Swiss accounts are almost primitive compared to modern trust structures. A properly constructed international trust can achieve something that seems impossible. The grantor can maintain effective control over assets while legally owning nothing. The trust is technically owned by professional trustees in jurisdictions with strong trust laws. Beneficiaries can be changed at any time, and the whole structure can be moved between countries if one jurisdiction becomes politically unstable. The Cook Islands International Trust represents the pinnacle of this evolution. Under Cook Islands law, no foreign court judgment is recognized. Creditors have an extremely short statute of limitations to challenge trust transfers, and the burden of proof for fraudulent transfer claims is nearly impossible to meet. Wealthy individuals can transfer their assets to these trusts, retain effective control through trust protectors and investment advisors, and achieve what legal scholars call civil immunity. They become judgment-proof while maintaining their lifestyle. Family offices represent the operational headquarters of these structures. Unlike traditional wealth managers, who serve multiple clients, family offices are private companies dedicated to managing the affairs of a single ultra-wealthy family. They employ teams of lawyers, accountants, investment professionals, and even former government officials who understand how regulatory systems work from the inside. The largest family offices manage hundreds of billions in assets across multiple generations. They don't just invest money, they shape markets, influence policy, and create new financial instruments designed to serve their specific needs. When you see news about a billionaire making a massive charitable donation, what you're usually witnessing is a carefully orchestrated trust transaction that provides tax benefits while maintaining family control over the donated assets. Consider the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, Mark Zuckerberg's 99% philanthropic commitment. This isn't a charitable foundation in the traditional sense. It's a limited liability company that can make political donations, lobby for policy changes, and invest in for-profit ventures while providing Zuckerberg with massive tax deductions. The assets remain under Zuckerberg's control. The family receives perpetual tax benefits, and they're lauded as philanthropists while maintaining dynastic wealth. The Panama Papers and Paradise Papers offered rare glimpses into this parallel universe, but what they revealed was just the surface layer of a much deeper system. Mossack Fonseca, the law firm at the center of the Panama Papers, was a mid-tier player in the offshore industry. The truly sophisticated structures are managed by firms whose names never appear in public databases, whose clients are protected by multiple layers of attorney-client privilege and professional secrecy laws. What the leaked documents did reveal was the staggering scale of offshore wealth. Conservative estimates suggest that over $30 trillion, nearly 40% of global wealth, is held in offshore structures. This isn't money hiding from taxes temporarily. This is wealth that has been permanently removed from the traditional tax base of every major economy. The HSBC Swiss leaks revealed how even traditional banks became complicit in this system. HSBC's Swiss private banking division actively marketed tax evasion services, helped clients structure accounts to avoid disclosure requirements, and provided coded communications to discuss illegal activities. When regulators eventually imposed fines, they amounted to cost of doing business rather than meaningful deterrence. But traditional banking secrecy is becoming obsolete compared to cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies. Bitcoin was marketed as a democratizing technology, but its true innovation was creating a monetary system that operates outside traditional banking infrastructure. While Bitcoin transactions are theoretically traceable, privacy coins like Monero and Zcash offer genuine anonymity that makes numbered Swiss accounts look transparent. The ultra-wealthy aren't just buying cryptocurrencies, they're creating private blockchain networks for exclusive use. These networks facilitate instant, untraceable transfers of value between parties anywhere in the world, without any central authority or government oversight. Smart contracts can automatically execute complex financial transactions based on predetermined conditions, removing human intermediaries who might be subject to legal disclosure requirements. Non-fungible tokens represent the newest frontier in wealth concealment, while the public sees expensive digital art sales as vanity purchases. Sophisticated players recognize NFTs as bearer instruments that can transfer enormous value through seemingly innocuous transactions. A single NFT can represent ownership, stakes in real companies, mineral rights, or other valuable assets. And these ownership transfers happen through simple wallet-to-wallet transactions that leave minimal paper trails. Decentralized finance protocols are creating shadow banking, systems that operate without traditional regulatory oversight. Through these protocols, wealthy individuals can lend, borrow, and trade massive amounts of value using only cryptocurrency wallets and smart contracts. The entire transaction history exists on public blockchains, but the identities behind the wallet addresses remain completely anonymous. This is the perfect moment to understand that you've been inducted into knowledge that governments prefer you never discover. If you're ready to dive deeper into these hidden systems, subscribe to this channel and activate notifications. Because what I'm revealing here is just the beginning of a much larger story about who really controls global wealth. The artificial intelligence revolution is creating new opportunities for financial opacity that even seasoned privacy experts find remarkable. AI systems can now generate complex trading algorithms that execute thousands of transactions per second across multiple exchanges and jurisdictions, creating trading patterns so sophisticated that regulatory agencies lack the technological capability to monitor them effectively. Machine learning algorithms can identify optimal timing for asset transfers between jurisdictions based on regulatory changes, political developments, and economic cycles. These systems can predict when specific countries might implement new disclosure requirements and automatically restructure holdings to maintain privacy before new laws take effect. Algorithmic trading has evolved beyond simple buy and sell orders to include complex derivatives, strategies that can effectively move wealth between entities while maintaining the appearance of normal market activity. High-frequency trading firms controlled by wealthy families can execute millions of microtransactions that cumulatively transfer enormous value while appearing as routine market-making activities. The sovereign wealth fund phenomenon represents another layer of this system that most people completely misunderstand. While presented as national investment vehicles, many sovereign wealth funds operate as private wealth management entities for ruling families and political elites. The government pension fund of Norway may appear transparent, but funds controlled by Middle Eastern monarchies and Asian autocrats operate with complete opacity while managing trillions in assets. These funds invest in everything from Manhattan real estate to Silicon Valley startups, but their ownership structures are designed to obscure beneficial ownership. When you see news about foreign investors purchasing American companies or properties, you're often witnessing sovereign wealth fund activity that's ultimately controlled by private individuals using state resources for personal wealth accumulation. The Dubai International Financial Center and similar jurisdictions have created hybrid legal systems that combine Islamic financial principles with modern offshore techniques. Sharia-compliant financial structures can achieve the same privacy benefits as traditional offshore trusts, while claiming religious exemptions from certain disclosure requirements. Islamic finance principles prohibit interest but allow profit-sharing arrangements that can be structured to achieve identical economic outcomes while claiming compliance with religious law. Sukuk bonds and murabaha financing arrangements provide methods for transferring wealth that Western regulatory systems struggle to analyze and monitor. The technology sector has created new categories of untraceable wealth through intellectual property licensing arrangements. Tech billionaires can transfer their most valuable assets, patents, trademarks, and trade secrets to offshore entities, then license these assets back to their operating companies. The licensing fees flow offshore as legitimate business expenses while the underlying intellectual property appreciates in value in tax-free jurisdictions. Software and digital assets can be owned by entities that exist only as legal constructs, with no physical presence anywhere. These entities can own the rights to algorithms, databases, and digital platforms worth billions, while the beneficial ownership remains completely obscured through layers of corporate structures. The global art market functions as an unregulated value transfer system for ultra-wealthy collectors. Art transactions often involve minimal documentation. Prices are entirely subjective, and ownership can be transferred through private sales that leave no public records. Freeport's specialized storage facilities in tax-free zones allow artwork to be bought, sold, and traded without ever entering any country's tax jurisdiction. High-value art pieces can appreciate for decades while stored in Swiss or Singaporean freeports, with ownership changing hands multiple times through private agreements. These transactions transfer enormous value while avoiding virtually all forms of government oversight or taxation. Private equity and hedge fund structures have evolved into vehicles for dynastic wealth preservation that operate with minimal regulatory oversight. Family-controlled investment funds can make unlimited political contributions, lobby for favorable legislation, and influence regulatory appointments while maintaining complete privacy about their activities and funding sources. These funds often operate as multi-generational vehicles that preserve wealth and influence across decades. The general partners who control these funds maintain decision-making authority, while the limited partners, often family members, across multiple generations, receive economic benefits without direct legal ownership of underlying assets. Real estate represents another frontier for financial opacity. Through complex ownership structures that span multiple jurisdictions, luxury properties in major cities are increasingly owned by shell companies registered in offshore jurisdictions, making beneficial ownership nearly impossible to determine. These properties serve multiple functions. They provide places to live and conduct business. They appreciate in value as inflation hedges, and they can be used as collateral for borrowing arrangements that provide liquidity without triggering taxable events. Property ownership can be transferred through entity ownership changes that avoid traditional real estate transfer taxes and disclosure requirements. The insurance industry provides sophisticated wealth transfer mechanisms through permanent life insurance policies and annuity products that can achieve estate planning objectives while maintaining privacy. These products can be owned by offshore trusts and structured to provide tax-free income to multiple generations of beneficiaries. Private placement life insurance allows wealthy individuals to invest unlimited amounts in hedge funds, private equity, and other alternative investments within life insurance wrappers that provide tax-free growth and distribution capabilities. These policies can be owned by international trusts and structured to avoid estate taxes across multiple generations. What makes all of this possible isn't just legal innovation, it's regulatory capture by the very people who benefit from these systems. Former Treasury officials, IRS commissioners, and financial regulators routinely move to private practice, where they help wealthy clients navigate the systems. They previously oversaw this revolving door, ensures that new regulations are written with built-in loopholes. Enforcement priorities focus on middle-class taxpayers rather than sophisticated structures, and the most effective planning techniques remain available to those with sufficient resources to access expert advice. Congressional tax committees are staffed by former private practice attorneys who understand these systems intimately. When new tax legislation is drafted, it's often written by people who will return to private practice to help clients minimize the impact of the very laws they created. The result is a tax system that appears comprehensive and fair on its surface, but contains countless escape hatches for those who understand its true architecture. While middle-class taxpayers face automated enforcement and aggressive collection efforts, the ultra-wealthy operate in a parallel system where compliance is negotiable and enforcement is nearly non-existent. International tax treaties, ostensibly designed to prevent double taxation and encourage economic cooperation, have been weaponized to create tax-free corridors for sophisticated planning structures. Treaty shopping allows wealthy individuals to route income through multiple jurisdictions to minimize tax obligations while maintaining compliance with the letter of international law. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development's efforts to combat tax avoidance have resulted in new reporting requirements that primarily affect middle-tier wealth, while leaving the most sophisticated structures untouched. Common Reporting Standard and Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act requirements create massive compliance burdens for ordinary offshore account holders, while providing exemptions for the trust and corporate structures used by the ultra-wealthy. This brings us to the philosophical heart of what I've been revealing. We live in a world where the appearance of law and order masks a deeper reality of selective enforcement and systemic inequality. The tax system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed by people who never intended for it to apply to them. If you've made it this far, you understand something that most people never discover. The system isn't rigged, it's designed. Comment invisible below if you see how deep this goes. And share this with someone who still believes the tax system is fair, and everyone pays their share. The true genius of this system lies not in its complexity, but in its invisibility. While ordinary citizens debate tax policy and worry about their obligations, the ultra-wealthy have transcended the entire conversation. They don't lobby for lower tax rates. They've structured their affairs to operate outside the tax system entirely. Every political debate about tax fairness, every proposal for higher rates on the wealthy, every populist movement demanding justice, it's all theater performed on a stage, while the real action happens in the wings. The billionaires you read about in Forbes aren't the real players. They're the public faces of a wealth system that operates beyond public scrutiny. The families whose names appear on hospital wings and university buildings aren't engaging in philanthropy. They're conducting multi-generational tax planning while maintaining social legitimacy. Their foundations and charitable trusts serve as tax-efficient vehicles for preserving dynastic wealth while providing the public relations benefits of appearing civic-minded. Meanwhile, the truly powerful remain completely anonymous, their wealth flowing through structures so sophisticated that their names never appear in any public database. They've achieved what medieval kings could only dream of: power without accountability, wealth without obligation, and influence without visibility. This is why certain billionaires remain untouchable by the IRS or any other government agency. Not because they're breaking laws, but because they've transcended the entire legal framework that governs everyone else. They've created a parallel financial universe that operates according to different rules, enforced by different institutions, serving different masters. The question isn't whether this system is fair. Fairness was never the objective. The question is whether you're content to remain a participant in the visible economy while others operate in the shadows, and whether you understand that every tax dollar you pay helps fund a system designed to ensure you'll never join the ranks of those who no longer pay taxes at all. This is the ultimate revelation. In a world where money is power, and power writes the rules, the only real freedom is the freedom to operate outside the rules entirely. The ultra-wealthy haven't just accumulated assets, they've accumulated sovereignty itself, creating their own nations with their own laws, their own enforcement mechanisms, and their own definitions of justice. And they've done it all while convincing everyone else that the game is fair. The rules apply equally, and success is just a matter of hard work and good fortune. The greatest trick the ultra-wealthy ever pulled was convincing the world that they still play by the same rules as everyone else. But now you know better. The only question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge?